Hi everyone, welcome to my podcast. Today's episode is going to be how to love yourself more. So it's going to be an episode with self-love tips because I feel like having sufficient self-love, confidence, and self-worth is going to solve most of the problems we have. And before I get started, all my Cantonese speakers out there, I want to wish you 兔年快樂，身體健康，出入平安，事順利，笑口常開。And for my non-Canto speakers, Happy Chinese New Year, and I'm wishing you a year of the rabbit filled with joy and health and prosperity. So, going back to the topic, loving myself has been a long journey, honestly, and it still continues till this day. There are still good days and bad days, but what matters the most is progress. So here are some tips to loving yourself that I've learned along the way. And I think the overarching sentiment is that the only person you have until the day you die is really just yourself. So make your head a good place to live in. With that said, let's get into the video. So first of all, talk to yourself as if you were talking to your best friend. When we make a mistake or a bad decision, we never fail to be the first ones to criticize and blame ourselves. The self-talk would resemble something like, why did I do that? Why couldn't I just have done blah, blah, blah? You did this because you're stupid, lazy, incapable, worthless. And the list goes on. However, imagine if your best friend did the same things. We would never say that to them. We would automatically shift to a different way of talking to them, which is more forgiving, loving, and empathetic. We immediately become a beacon of light and love and support for them without hesitation. So it surprised me how different the ways we talk to ourselves versus the way we talk to our best friend are. It's almost as if we split ourselves into two personas. One is judgy and nitpicky and does that to ourselves when the slightest inconvenience occurs, and attributes mistakes to personal faults like stupidity, disorganization, or inadequacy. Whereas the other part of us, whom we also often use for forgiving and understanding our best friends for the same things, will attribute those things to very human limitations like simple forgetfulness, tiredness, busyness, or other environmental factors, or other people's faults. For example, if my best friend did something wrong or is going through a rough patch, I'd say something like, you got this, no worries at all, shit happens, there's always a next time, love you, and I'm here if you want to talk about it. And we actually mean that. If my best friend came to me with self-doubt and self-hatred, I'd try to talk them out of it by saying it's just a bad day for them. I'd come to their defense and say something like, remember when you did this? That was really cool. Don't let this one single instance bring you down. You deserve the world. The difference is dark. So uplift yourself the way that you would support your best friend. In fact, these two different attitudes reveal a deeper belief that we could easily lose our best friend if we don't treat them with care. We value the way our best friends think and feel so much because we value their friendship and their feelings and individuality. Now imagine that you felt the same way about yourself. Ultimately, it boils down to one question. Do you value the relationship with yourself? If your friend spoke to you in such a harsh, demeaning way, you probably wouldn't want to stay friends with them for too long. So why would we speak to ourselves in those ways? It helps remembering that the only person we have until the day we die is ourselves. So we have to make our head a good place to live in. Number 2, distinguish your own thoughts from internalized criticism. If you grew up with hypercritical parents, or really just any figure who played a role of criticizing you, then you will be familiar with hearing the voice of them in your head, disguised as your own thoughts. It's scary, but it's true. We spend the first 18 years of our lives with our parents and extended family, teachers, and other kids. And because at that time we haven't really fully formed our views on ourselves, our views on the world, we internalize their voices as our own views of these things until we have actively grown up and done the work as adults to examine and unlearn them. At some point as adults, we have to learn to separate the thoughts that are truly our own from the thoughts that are actually our parents. We especially have to learn to let go of those that were personally derogatory, degrading, and no longer serve us. I want to clarify by saying that I'm not saying that all parents are toxic at all. When we grew up, most parents tried their best with what they had to raise us. And this not only refers to physical resources, but also the intellectual and mental, emotional reserves and intelligence that they had. For that, I'm very grateful to my parents for being good enough parents. Still, our parents are human, just like we will be when we grow up and become parents, if we do. And they are not the perfect superheroes that we think they are when we are children. Our parents' criticism, no matter how well intentioned, will have shaped the way we see ourselves and the world. For example, my thoughts on myself regarding my appearance, capabilities, strengths and weaknesses, and even my personality for some reason have some regard to the way my parents saw me and discussed me, to me and to others. This parental gaze even affects my thoughts on the character of other people and society and the way the world works. When we are able to distinguish the thoughts that are theirs versus the thoughts that are ours, we not only develop a stronger sense of self, but we also learn to curb an overarching source of unsolicited, permeating self-criticism that is often unconstructive. Number 3, realize that everyone only really cares about themselves and not about you, obviously. No matter what you do, people are still going to judge you, or even better, people actually don't really care about you. So let go of others' opinions. So I love this quote from a Stoic philosopher, Marcus Aurelius, which goes, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love others more than other people." Nope, I messed up. Let me go again. It goes, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." This quote from Marcus Aurelius reminds me that everyone only really cares about themselves, despite what we think. Deep down, we all love ourselves more than other people. So a simple deduction leads to the conclusion that if everyone only really cares about themselves, why not love yourself instead of hate yourself, since nobody cares about you anyway? I think this is Gen Z humor, if I'm not wrong. On the surface level, Marcus Aurelius' quote serves as a timely reminder for us to live the life we want to live. He wants us to let go of the fear and anxiety of others' opinions and live a life we love, in which we make our decisions based on what we want best for ourselves, without peer influence and pressure. On a higher level, his quote reassures us that even though we seem to suffer from self-hatred and criticism, it is a result of loving ourselves so much that we can't bear the thought of others hating us. Because we actually deep down love ourselves, we put time and energy into worrying about the way others think of us and judge us. We spend our money and time on things, experiences, or even jobs that present ourselves to other people in certain ways that seem socially acceptable and esteemed. At the very core of these actions, though, we deeply yearn for a social belonging because we love ourselves and couldn't bear to see ourselves as an irrelevant outcast. Number 4 is to become someone lovable to yourself first, also known as a self-pleaser. We feel regretful, lost, and self-sabotage the most when we disagree with the choices we make and are forced to do something we don't want to because they are not in alignment with our authentic selves, values, and beliefs. The key to loving ourselves is therefore to become someone we want to love, also known as our authentic self. If they are someone who embodies the qualities we value and honors our own promises, we'd want to love them and befriend them if we met them. And this is the goal. This is different from being someone lovable to others, otherwise known as a people pleaser. Being a self-pleaser first and foremost may require doing things for yourself that others may not necessarily love or be a fan of or agree with, such as setting boundaries or serving your needs first before accommodating others, saying no. This does not mean leaving relationships. It just means that you prioritize your well-being in order to make your life and relationships more genuine and sustainable. Not just to people, but also to things you do, jobs, events, and life events. In addition, I find it helpful to picture either what I would be doing with my life if time and money were no longer concerns, and also what I would regret on my deathbed the most if I continued to go on the path that I was on now. For example, I suffered from the most self-hatred when I was living a lifestyle I disliked and disagreed with. Most recently, this was a job that I didn't enjoy at all in order to get my full doctor qualification. I disappointed myself by following this certain career path at the time due to practicality rather than passion. And I hated spending money on job-related expenses, which were things I didn't want to spend money on. I regretted putting aside my dreams, missing out on spending time with my loved ones, and most of all, just not listening to myself. Others may experience acts of self-betrayal that look like addictions or staying in toxic relationships, clinging onto bad habits, and avoiding getting the help that you need for your mental health. It's so much easier said than done to let go of others' opinions and listen to our own, because often our values and belief systems are informed by larger frameworks of culture, society, religion, and institutions, and those things uphold the values and belief systems that we have. It is already very difficult to identify our own voices, while it takes even more courage, energy, and determination to listen to them and follow them. To take the path less taken would be to escape social programming, go against the mainstream, and become the odd one out. On a large scale, of course, but we can also start with something small, like breaking bad habits and working on our addictions, cutting toxic relationships, and seeking the help we need for our mental health. Just like the practice of setting boundaries, we may need to seek support around processing the anxiety and guilt it might cause. But to many, it is worth withstanding the social scrutiny and resistance for the sake of reaching closer to your authentic self, who is someone you can live as with the most joy and love within yourselves and without regrets. Thanks for listening.